Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. The chart show is back. You can't skip a chart show just because it's been a bad week. And it has been a bad week for Manchester United. 6-3 loss in the Manchester derby and a bit of a feeble 3-2 win against the Cypriot side that I'm already trying to forget, but we're playing them next week. Anana FC, of course. Ammonia FC, sorry. We're playing Anana. Could be Anana FC tomorrow if he plays well for Everton. Anyway, Ammonia FC. It's not been a great week, but you can't skip a chart show because ultimately you've got to expose the fact that five of the players in the chart top 10 from the last time we did it, just before the international break, are out. We've got 5 new entries and 5 dropping out. Embarrassing? Well, maybe so, but you've got to set the bar. It's easy to look at the chart show when it's been a good week. I think it's more important to look at the chart show when it's been a bad week and see who's let themselves down, who's let the club down. So let's dive straight into it. And we're going to start off with look, last time Rafael Varane was number 3. He's fallen to number 10. I actually think he should take it as a positive being this week's number 10 because there are people that were a lot higher than that. I can tell you now that we've got well, it wasn't last week, was it? The last chart shows number 4 is not even in the top 10 at all. So Varane was number 3. He's now down to number 10. Why has he maintained his position? Best of a bunch that not dropped out really, but also Varane didn't play in Cyprus, so can't be attached to that. And he went, basically it was 1-0 to City when he went off. I know he was on when the second goal went in, but he was injured at that point. So Varane just about clings on. There's not a lot more to say than that. He just about clings on to the top 10 and maintains credibility, basically because he got injured and sort of dodged the annihilation, really. So Varane, number 10, this week's number 10, dropping from number 3, 7 spots, as I said. First new entry of the week is Luke Shaw. He's in at number 9. So why is Luke Shaw in at number 9? Well, I can tell you that the person who was number 4 last time out, Malacia, is out. He's out of the top 10, and I think we know why. Poor performance in Cyprus, poor performance in the Manchester derby, and that's opened the door for Luke Shaw to come in. And I think people will be saying, Luke Shaw, what's he done? We've got to get a top 10 out of a bad week. Luke Shaw came on against Man City, did reasonably well, and was reasonably good against Ammonia FC as well. So, look, I can't dress it up, I can't ice it, I can't say it any better than that. Luke Shaw's this week's number 9 because he didn't do too badly when he came in to replace Malacia. It's as simple as that, Luke. Build on it against Everton. This week's number 8, he's dropped 1 spot. He was number 7 last time out, Bruno Fernandes. He's dropped to number 8. And again, I suppose it gauges just the quality of what this week has been. It's a bit of a stat, it's like a pie where you're just putting potato in instead of meat. You call it a meat and potato pie. You've got 1 bit of meat and loads of potato. And I feel that there's a lot of filler on the chart show this week. And Bruno Fernandes, for many people, probably would be out of the top 10. At this point, I will tell you the 5 players that dropped out. Malacia, you already know about. Cristiano Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho, Scott McTominay, and David De Gea. Now, the only one out of those that I think probably could have made it in just about was David De Gea. But when you concede 6 goals, 2 in Cyprus, 8 goals, you can't really say that the keeper didn't do anything wrong. I don't think he did do anything wrong on the goals, but it's still 8 goals conceded. So I opted to keep Varane in just because he only conceded 1. So Bruno could have been knocked out, but you can't knock everybody out. So Bruno is this week's number 8. I think with Bruno, look, you get those moments of genuine quality, and then you get those moments of genuine frustration. I don't think it's been a good week for Bruno Fernandes, captain in the team as well. But look, he's not a player that's going to get dropped. I don't think he was absolutely dreadful. I think many people were dreadful in the derby, but yeah, he maintains his place basically because others played worse, I suppose. So he's this week's number 8. And then this week's number 7 is Christian Eriksen. Now, he was number 2 last time out, so he's dropped a lot. And I think it's disappointing from Eriksen, really, when you think about how good he's been. As I said, he was last time out, he was number 2. He's now dropped to number 7. Not very good in the derby. Not particularly great against in Cyprus. Fantastic on the international break for Denmark. Fantastic for Manchester United up until that point. And is it tiredness? Is his level starting to drop? We've seen that with new signings with United before. I wouldn't say I'm worried, but you've definitely got to acknowledge that Christian Eriksen has dropped off this week. And Ericsson, Ten Hag, they need to sort that out ASAP, because he is a player that I just can't imagine Christian Eriksen being the sort of player for Manchester United that consistently doesn't deliver. But then again, I remember there was a time in the first year with Bruno where I thought there'll never be a time where he doesn't deliver. And now we're quite used to Bruno being inconsistent. So maybe it's the infection of Manchester United. A player comes in, they look like they're never going to fail, and then gradually they do, drop to the level of everybody else, which is inconsistency. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But he's this week's number 7, Christian Eriksen. So that means this week's number 6 is Casemiro. I'm not. It's a bit like Luke Shaw. I'm not saying that Casemiro's been fantastic. It's just that so many people have been bad. So you're going to get, I would say, 6 Casemiro. This week's number 6. 6 out of 10 is average, and I would say that Casemiro's been in at number 6 because he's been pretty average. I think people misjudge what his job is. I don't think when he came on in the derby he was massively brilliant. But I felt in Cyprus he did the job. He had over 90 passes. Of course, you're playing not a very good team, but at least he gets on the ball and wants the ball. I think we've seen with Fred and McTominay that they don't want the ball a lot of the time. So having a player that wants the ball is a big thumbs up. But for £60 million and one of the best CDMs in the world, you'd expect that. And hopefully this is the start of something for Casemiro that should have started weeks ago. He's finally got a spot in the team. His job is to protect the back four, take the ball, and feed it to the more attacking players. And he certainly did that in Cyprus. And he's this week's number 6 for me because I think he's had a better week than Bruno, Eriksen, Varane, and Shaw, who were above it, who were behind him. So look, he's in at number 6 by choice, but also by default. I think that's where he should be going in. But look, it's been a bad week for Manchester United on the pitch, and when Casemiro's in at number 6, it sort of reflects that somebody who played reasonably well against MUFC is this week's number 6. The standards need to be higher, but hopefully Everton next week tomorrow, and then next week's chart show will be better based on a really tough game at Goodison Park. This week's number 5, and it's another new entry like Casemiro. Casemiro was a new entry, by the way. Our third new entry of the week is in at number 5, and it's Anthony, and it's the first time he's been in the chart show. So well done to Anthony. He's in at number 5. He's a massive signing from Ajax, not in height but in value. And look, I mean, he scored a very good goal in the Manchester derby that meant absolutely nothing because we'd been annihilated. But Ederson didn't want to get beat, and it was a fantastic goal. He nearly did the same in Cyprus. I don't know why he's getting thrown in with Sancho. I don't think he played particularly well in the derby. He didn't hope to help Delo out, but at least he contributed with a goal in the second half. It wasn't a very good performance from him in the derby, and I'm not going to pretend it is, but I actually thought and think he's getting better by the game. Now, he didn't come in July. He didn't have a pre-season. He was on strike at Ajax. He came to Manchester United. He scored on his debut, but he's looked ridiculously off the pace and rusty. But I think he's getting better and better by the game. And I actually felt in Cyprus, he had a good game. As an attacker, he was probably one of our best attackers on the pitch, apart from when Rashford and Martial came on. So I was, again, if Casemiro's 6, Anthony's had a slightly better week, so he is this week's number 5. And again, like Casemiro, hopefully he can build on it, because I think there is improvement game to game with Anthony, and I hope to see it continue. I mean, the Europa League's all fine and well, isn't it? We watch the games, we look for a bit of confidence. We didn't really get it this week, but the Premier League's where it's at. That's where it's at, and that's where you've got to deliver, and that's where Manchester United will be judged. We could do really well in the Europa League and then not win it, and it means nothing. You've got to win the Europa League. That's what you've got to do. The Premier League, week in, week out, 38 games in a season, every season. That's where you get judged, really. If you're in the Champions League, it's a little bit different, but the Europa League, we've got to deliver in the Premier League, and hopefully Anthony's going to start kicking on with that. Be a big game for him at Everton as well. This week's number 4, some people might disagree with it. I think that Delo last time out was I can't remember where Delo was last time. It was number 6, so he's actually moved up 2 spots. Never in a million years, but I thought Diego Delo would be moving up. But it's just the weirdness of this week, isn't it? And look, I think Delo got given the runaround in the Manchester derby. I really do. I think that in Cyprus, he played reasonably well. But I think one thing you do get with Delo is that the mentality is good. And look, there's nobody to challenge him anyway. So it's not like he's not like Malacia where Luke Shaw's waiting to come in. But I also don't think he's like Malacia where Malacia's had a dreadful week. I don't think Delo's had a dreadful week. I think that the reason I've put Delo in at number 4 is I think he's had a fantastic season up until this week. But even in a bad week, we still saw moments of strength and perseverance in the Manchester derby. And we saw on Thursday night that it hadn't got to him too much. He was still, he had a reasonably good game. But I think the reason I put him in at number 4 is because I think that with Delo, you've got to appreciate that there will be times. I still think he's a work in progress. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't hold the Manchester derby. I think some players really, really let themselves down. I don't think Delo played well in the Manchester derby, but I don't think he let himself down. I think it's all part of the curve, and I think Ten Hag sees that as well. I think with Delo, we will get games where he gets exploited, and he didn't get a lot of help, did he? Let's be honest, he didn't get a lot of help from Anthony. So I've kept Delo in at number 4 this week, mainly because I don't think he's a player to throw under the bus. I think he's a player that we need to stick by and encourage. And it's not been a great week for him, but even in the bad moments in the derby and even on Thursday night, you could see that his head was still up. He was still, working really, really hard. And I think he's a work in progress player. I don't think we should expect brilliance from Delo every week. I think that there has been real movement from last season in the first few weeks of this season under Ten Hag, and I think we need to encourage that. He's a very important player for us, definitely very, very important player. Brand new entry in at number 3, Marcus Rashford. Some people might say he should be higher. I disagree. The reason Marcus Rashford is in at number 3 this week, and I did consider putting him in the top position or second. The reason he's in at number 3 is because the goals he scored in Cyprus were fantastic. The link-up play, the energy, the intensity. This is what we want to see from Manchester United players. And he certainly showed that, especially coming on for Sancho. The contrast between Sancho on Thursday night and Rashford on Thursday night. And there shouldn't be a contrast. All right, you can say the opposition ain't great. And people will go, oh, stop bigging Rashford up. He's playing against, a very poor side. Sancho didn't deliver. Rashford did. So you can criticise the opposition, but certain Man United players still didn't deliver. Rashford came on and made it look easy at times, but that's because he was focused, intensity, hard work. So I applaud Marcus Rashford for that. I think he had a very, very good cameo in the second half. 45 minutes. He was on at half time. So I applaud Rashford for that. But the reason for me why Rashford doesn't go into any higher than 3rd place is because I think that's the highest. That's the lowest I could put him. You couldn't put him below a Delo or an Anthony or a Casemiro because he's had a better week. But he had a dreadful Manchester derby. So as much as Rashford was good in that second half in Cyprus, he had a dreadful Manchester derby. And, Malacia's dropped out. McTominay's dropped out of the top 10 from last time. Who else dropped out? Ronaldo, De Gea, Malacia, Sancho. So... And a lot of that is based on the derby, isn't it? Obviously, Ronaldo didn't play in the derby, to be fair, but he didn't have a great night in Cyprus. Rashford was dreadful in the derby, so I can't have him as number 1 this week for 45 minutes against a Cypriot side. So Marcus Rashford has had a good week, but I think, as ever, the issue with Marcus Rashford is consistency. It's that consistency in... dreadful in the Manchester derby, very good in the second half at Cyprus. And it's that consistency we need to get from Rashford and from Manchester United. But he's well worthy of 3rd place. And look, hopefully, what we saw in the second half in Cyprus, he can take into the Goodison Park and he can move up next week. So good week for Rashford. Number 2 is actually last time out's number 1, Martinez. Now, it might cause people to go, what are you talking about? But I do believe that Martinez, very much like Varane, in that Manchester derby, you lose your centre-back partner very early on and you're going to be in trouble. You are going to be in trouble, and we were in trouble. His left-back had a bad game. His midfield didn't protect him. And I think that a lot of people gave Martial man of the match in the Manchester derby, but Martial came on very late. Martinez was there from the start, and I actually think Martinez was probably the only player that started that game that came out with any credibility. And I'm not saying he was perfect. I mean, I'm sure he was at fault for a couple of the goals himself, but I think that Martinez just has that thing that we've spoken about before. He has that tenacity, he has that intensity, and I don't think he's one of the players in the Manchester derby that just disappeared. I don't think he has that in him. And I'm not saying he played well, but he did come out with some credibility. And I think one thing that's really important from Martinez is if he plays a ball into McTominay or Eriksen or Bruno and they give the ball away, is that on him? And I think if you look at Martinez, both in Cyprus and in the Manchester derby, there was countless times where he's coming out from the back four, or he's bringing the ball out from the back four, or he's passing the ball out from the back four in a very intelligent way that we haven't really seen at Manchester United for a number of years. So for me, Martinez might seem weird to some people, but I think he more than deserves to hold. Well, he doesn't deserve to hold number one, but he is not. He's not this week's number one, but he is this week's number two. And I think he's been one of our most consistent performers since that loss to Brentford when he came in with Varane. And he was left to pick up the pieces when Varane went off, and obviously it got worse. But as I say, I think he was very good in Cyprus. Neither of the goals were on him, were they? And his ability to bring the ball out from the back, and his ability to not let his head drop either. And he's only just new in the door. I think he's a very important player for us. Much the same as Dalot. I think we need to be. I think you as fans as well as I can see how important a player like Martinez is, and it's very important that we don't throw those players under the bus, because I think that Dalot and Martinez, their mentality is very good, and you don't see their heads dropping. They may be party to the bad result, but their mentality is good. Which means this week's number one, smash a like on the video. I don't know whether he's back, but he's this week's number one. It's Anthony Martial, and he is hands down number one this week, isn't he? I mean, slim pickings anyway, but he has to be number one this week. The goal he scored on Thursday was fantastic, and obviously a lot of that was to do with the link up with Rashford. I think when he came on and played behind Ronaldo for about 20 minutes before Fred came on, it might have even been less than that. He was quiet when he went to the right-hand side, but when he was playing centrally, he was running the show. And he's intelligent enough as a footballer, and he's good enough with the ball at his feet to do that. And this is why Martial, I think, will be so important to Ten Hag as a number 9. But look, he came on in the Manchester derby. That penalty may not have meant much, but the way the game's going, you expect to miss that penalty, don't you? It was a dreadful day in the Manchester derby. That penalty was superb. And people can say, well, it's a penalty. You can score a penalty and you can score a penalty. The way he took that, he didn't. It's a risky penalty to hit it so well in the top corner. It was a beautiful penalty, and yeah, he got a little bit lucky with the other goal he scored. But it's 3 goals in 2 games. But it's more than that. It's 3 goals in less than 90 minutes, because he came on as a sub in both of those games and he scored 3 goals. So hands down, number one this week, and really one of the few players that's come out of this week. In fact, Martial's probably the only player that comes out of this week with zero culpability in relation to the poor performance in Cyprus and the poor performance in the Manchester derby. He came on very late in the Manchester derby. The game was lost, and he scored 2 goals. He came on in the second half of the game in Cyprus, scored a goal, and obviously we were losing 1-0 when he wasn't on the pitch. So I think Martial comes out of it with a clean bill of health. You know, he can't be associated with any of the negatives of the week, and he's very much the biggest contributor to the positives. So for me, Martial is this week's number one. Smash a like on the video if you agree. And look, it's not been a great week, but I do enjoy doing the chart show. I wouldn't say I enjoy it more when it's a bad week. I'm much more enjoying the weeks when we've been good. But I was a bit reticent and hesitant to do this today. But I think it's really important that you do it, because 5 new entries, 5 people dropping out. If you're not in the top 10 for Manchester United, you've got to take a look at yourself, haven't you, as a player? And I think it's a good way of doing it. And you can get your top 10s and you can disagree in the comments. That's what it's all about. But this week's number one for me is Anthony Martial. So let's run down from 10 to number one. In at number 10, we had Varane. Number 9, Luke Shaw, new entry. Number 8, Bruno Fernandes. Number 7, Christian Eriksen. Number 5, new entry again, Casemiro. Sorry, number 6, Casemiro. A new entry. Number 5, new entry, Anthony. Number 4, Dalot. Number 3, new entry, Rashford. Number 2 is Martinez, who was last time out's number 1. And brand new entry, straight in at number 1. It's like Chesney Hawkes, the one and only. That was a new entry in at number 1 all those years ago. Anthony Martial. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Match day tomorrow. Get your comments in below. Make sure you subscribe. We're getting really close to 1.5 million. We should hit that tomorrow on the watch along, hopefully. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you all in a bit.